Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Intrepid Investor. Today, we have a treat for you. We have a principal buyer's agent from Investor Aid. He deals with real estate investors Australia-wide and basically helps them find the best investment properties for their situations. I met this man at the Property Expo in Brisbane a couple of weeks ago, and he had a presentation there that I just thought we need to share with you guys. Please welcome Rohit Gelot to the podcast. Hi, Rohit.
Hi, Vanessa. Thanks for having me here.
Thank you for coming on. So I want to start with just a bit of your background because I know that you weren't always a buyer's agent.
That is correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So how did you
Okay.
get into that?
Now, okay. So I'll get started. So I got graduated in 2007 as an engineer, and then, since then I've been working in IT. So initially started as a developer, then transitioned into management roles, mid-management roles, and in my most recent role, I've been working as a data engineering manager for Combank here in Sydney. So that was back in as I left that job in April 2023, and I started my buyer's agency. So while I was working in my 9 to 5, right? So I got interested in real estate and I started building my portfolio. So that has actually given me that courage, also that financial backup to be able
Yes.
to transition into something that I love doing.
So your properties were cash flow properties?
Yeah, see, I've always focused on cash flow as well as capital growth together. And I'm
Mhm.
glad that I did that because the time when I was investing, the interest rate was sitting at 2.5%, right?
Oh,
Back in
that's the
those days
dream.
where, yes, exactly. And back in those days, if I have to tell anyone that also focus on cash flow, it was really difficult conversation. But I always kept focusing on cash flow so that I'm not too much out of pocket. So the time when I bought them, they were cash flow positive.
Mhm.
But then even at this point, like most of them are very close to neutrally geared, and some of them are very less negative.
Okay, yeah. So you had the cash flow positive at that time. So like you said, that gave you the confidence to make the switch. Is that
Yeah.
so you
Yeah, see,
dropped?
there are a few events that happened in between, right? And then there was an accident that happened in July, like exactly on when I completed 5 years in the country, I met a very severe accident. My car crashed, and
Oh,
that was a
wow.
transitioning moment for me that I decided that I will be now doing something which I love doing rather than I've just been in the corporate for last 15, 16 years, was
Yeah.
not liking it, but never had that courage of doing something on my own. And then that they gave me a confidence. And on one of the days, I remember speaking to someone I follow who is a business coach based in Brisbane. I just rang him saying that I'm really not wanting to continue anymore. And then, as a result of that conversation, I took 200K of equity out from my portfolio to be able to survive for the next 1 year without a job. And then I left my job. And then
Wow.
that is how it all. So it would not have been possible if I had no equity, if I had no capital growth, right? So
Yeah.
my portfolio gave not just me the courage, but also the financial buffer that I needed in order to do that transition.
Yeah, because did you have a family at the time?
Yeah, yeah. I've got wife, I've got 2 kids. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because that always makes it more difficult, right? You were the main
Yes, it
provider,
does.
I'm guessing. Yeah.
Yeah, I was probably making 80-90% of my family income, and I just left that, having probably an expense of more than 200K, including those mortgages. And this all had happened the time when the interest rate has actually gone to 6%, right? So it was
Oh,
even more difficult. But again, I think there is nothing more powerful than a determined mind. Like when you have decided that you have to do something, you make it work.
100%, definitely. And yeah, having that backup. So what made you get the properties in the first place? Like, did you just know that property is what you wanted to invest in? Had you already done it before you came to Australia? Or what was it that made you realize that
Yeah.
you wanted to
See, I
invest?
came I came to Australia in 2017, July, right? So again, alone, and a month later, my family joined in. So in 2019, I remember like when I came to Australia, I was just having I think 7.5 grand in my pocket, and that's all I had. But then, in order to establish my furniture, get the car for the family because I got the kids before even getting my employment, right? And my wife has never worked back in India. She never planned to work here, so I was the only one who had to provide for the family. So that
Wow,
time I
that's a lot of
remember taking,
pressure.
yeah, but see again, I think that is what like I'm all because of that, right? because if that would not have happened, I may not have been what I am today.
Yes.
So I actually had to take $20,000 from a cousin who was living in Sydney at the time, and it took me until March 2018 to get to zero balance without any debt. So I basically worked in my job for 5 months at Deutsche Bank, and then after that, in February 2018, as a contractor, I started with Combank, and then in March, I think around March, I just paid everything. I was at $0, which was actually a success because I was starting with minus 13, 14, I think minus 20, because I had spent around 27, 28, including the car.
Wow. And then you just built up. So then you just kept working. How did you get the
Yeah.
first deposit for your property?
Yeah, so it was all see. There were a few things that happened in the background. So in order to get my first property, I was just saving every last bit. I was living in an apartment. We were not spending too much money, and I was contracting. My pay was really good. In April, I started at around $700 per day, but then in August I got it moved to 900 using some tricks. So I got a drastic pay rise, right? So
Mhm.
I kept saving very much. Like I think at the time we were just spending 3.5 grand as an expense, and I was making 11, 12 grand. So I was saving 7, 8 grand each month, and that actually gave me a boost. And then back in India also, like since we have got super here, we have got similar schemes in India where I think I had a savings of around 13 lakhs, which converts to around 25, $26,000.
Okay.
So I withdrew that. I brought that to Australia, and then my savings there. That basically got me to the deposit for my first purchase. So I started looking at properties in April 2019, which was just after one plus year after I started saving money. And then in May 2019, I ended up buying my first property where I'm living and sitting at the moment, right? So I bought
Okay.
this
So you bought
property.
your owner occupied property.
100%. I bought this owner occupier property, and at the time I actually didn't know much about what I should be buying, where I should be buying. I ended up buying something where it was a four-bedder, but I didn't even look at the room sizes of three rooms in the back. So the
Mhm.
room that I'm sitting in is probably less than 3 meters each way, each direction. But and that is what I now keep educating people, that the size of the rooms has no correlation to its growth potential. It's more about the land size, the location, and everything. So I bought this property at $900,000, and today, like in 5 years' time, it's worth around 2 mil.
Wow.
Yeah. So again, the reason why it was able to have that growth is definitely due to the market cycle timing. But I was lucky enough, I was fortunate enough that I invested in at the right market cycle timing, though
Yes.
I wasn't aware. I got ready at exactly the same time. So there is very less likelihood of you making that happen unknowingly, right? Like you need to be intentional. So in 2019, if you remember from 2017, the APRA regulations came in due to, and they had curbed investor lending. So the market started correcting. So I actually
Mhm.
ended up picking right at the bottom of the market because from August 2019 onwards, the interest rate cuts started happening and which started lifting the market up. So I just bought 2 months prior to that. It
Okay.
was probably the rock bottom, I think, in the last since 2016, 2017. But
Yeah.
again, I was just fortunate, no knowledge until this stage, nothing. I just applied some very basic principles. In Sydney, you need to be closer to a public transport that is valued very
Mm.
much. So I just bought something which is 600 meters from a metro line, which was supposed to start in 10 days' time when I signed the contract.
Oh, the construction. So it hadn't actually been constructed yet.
No, no, it was all constructed. It was doing
Oh.
the pilot. So it actually got operational in 10 days after I signed the
Ah,
contract.
right. Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's the
So,
thing. Yeah, so it was public transport. What else was there that you looked out
yeah,
for?
see, public transport, also the demographics are great. But at that point in time, I just knew about the word of mouth. I wasn't so much into looking at the demographics. I didn't have access to the tools. I didn't even have the knowledge of interpreting that data, right? At
Hmm.
that back in the day. But I would say in my first investment, I just got lucky. But after that, and actually that got me interested in real estate, right? Like in
Yeah.
2020, when I saw it rising 200K in 4 months and then 300, 400, which was really surprising. And then COVID happened in March 2020, right? And the best part about COVID was that I stopped traveling to work, which meant that I stopped spending too much time in closer proximity to people who had that 9 to 5 shift or that mindset.
Mindset.
And then
Yeah.
as a result, I started doing morning walks, evening walks, and I started listening to the positive. Like I started with Les Brown, honestly, Les Brown, and then multiple motivational speakers, and then it all started shifting my beliefs, my thinking, and then I got like I remember from I think May and June I started learning about Brisbane market,
Mm-hmm.
and then but at back in the time it was only me who was working, right? And I've taken a good mortgage for this home, so I was almost at I didn't have any borrowing capacity. Everyone told me you can't borrow anything. Then again there was a Facebook ad that popped up on my screen. See, there is a saying, right? Where there's a will there is a way. So I was just looking
100%.
at properties. I was looking at like how, and the first property that I was looking in Brisbane, I didn't know anything about how you should be searching for the locations, right? So what I ended up doing is I opened Google Map. As I was looking, I was reading propertychat.com.au. I was reading, I was listening to many other podcasts, reading some articles here and there, whatever I can read. I read a few books. That gave me a very brief understanding of how I should be targeting. So, but
Mhm.
I didn't know how to look for the markets, right? And I didn't know anything about the market cycle timing. But back in the day, I was looking at Brisbane. I started exploring some pockets in Brisbane City Council. I was looking around Boondall and the airport, some of the suburbs there. But then I got to know that in Brisbane City Council, back in the days, you can build a granny. So my strategy at the time again was that I should be having good cash flow so that I'm not out of pocket too much from my wages.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was looking in Brisbane City Council, but then I got to know that you can build a granny, but you really can't let it to a separate household other than the person
Oh,
or
it
the
has to be
family
the
occupying.
same. Right.
Yes, so it was like that, and that actually made me look outside Brisbane City Council. Then I had to go to Moreton Bay, and I don't know where to go. So what I started doing is I started going along the train line, and then I ended up going to Strathpine, which was the first suburb. I wanted to be closest to the city, but
Yeah.
still in another council so that I can build that. So I ended
Yes.
up and so everything I think everything started fitting perfectly well. I was just doing the research because when you have got no money, you have got a lot of time. All you
Yes.
can do is research, right? I didn't have borrowing
True.
capacity. I didn't know anything about the equity at the time. Then this Facebook ad popped up, and again, that lady's name was also Vanessa
Oh,
from
okay.
Eastern. Yeah, so she was from Eastern suburbs, and she reached out saying that you potentially can get a mortgage, which was actually a surprise because my existing mortgage broker told me I couldn't get anything. That
Okay.
is
This
another
was a
learning for
mortgage.
me.
Vanessa was a mortgage broker.
Yes, she was a mortgage broker. So she reached out saying that you can get a loan, and she mentioned that with Resimac was the lender who can help you, which is a non-banking lender. He can
Mhm.
get they can get you a loan of up to I think 400,000 or 450, something like that. That limited my ability. I think 460 or 480 was the maximum limit that I could go for.
Okay. That's okay.
I
That's still, you
was
can still get a property.
Yeah, back in the day, yes. So but because I've only bought property in NSW, I didn't know that there was a concept called subject to finance clause. When I was
Oh,
talking to an agent in Strathpine, she mentioned that you can actually put a deposit, but if you don't get a finance, you even get
yeah, you get it
your
back.
complete money back.
Yeah.
I was thinking I'll lose some deposit, but she mentioned you lose nothing. So I had nothing to lose. I just bid on a property, ended up securing it, and but I was very less optimistic that I'll get a loan because many people have told me you couldn't get a mortgage. But then I was successfully able to buy my first investment property in January 2021.
Yeah, right.
And then again, I maxed out as usual.
Yeah.
Nothing. But from like in hindsight now, I look when from January 2021 to June 2022, in 18 months, I ended up buying 7 properties.
Wow. Wait,
Yes.
so was that all from capital or was that all from non-bank lenders? Like, how did you juggle that?
Nah, it wasn't. So, as I said, right, my wife wasn't working, right? As soon as I settled on my property, as soon as I settled on my property in Brisbane in January, somewhere around January 2021, I spoke to the local broker, who was also a friend, and
Mhm.
asked him that how can I get more mortgage? So He suggested that get your wife into some job which could just be closer to minimum wages, but that will be uplifting your borrowing capacity. So I
Okay.
got my wife joined a job again, very closer to minimum wages, but just to help me with the serviceability. So he told
Yeah.
me to wait until July for like, and he mentioned that as soon as you get to July and you get two new salary slips in the new financial year, you can actually make a forecast. She would have an history of 5 6 months, and then based on the forecast, you can get a mortgage.
Hmm.
And then as soon as I got my second, I remember getting that salary slip around 2 p.m. and that was sent to my mortgage broker at 2:10. And I was phoning him at 4 or 5 in the evening. Man, what is my borrowing capacity? Let me know. You
Yeah.
told me 6 months ago this is what you need. You have got this. And I was fortunate enough, NAB agreed that they'll be lending me around 400 to 450. And then
Wow.
I was looking at properties in Perth. I ended up buying a property in Huntingdale for $310,000 in July.
Okay. Yeah.
So as soon as I bought that property in July, so we have gone through the process of mortgage application, and as soon as I got the unconditional approval, I immediately rang the broker, asked him like, how much can I borrow more? Let me know. He
Yeah.
told me, man, because the interest rates were declining at the time, so he mentioned you can still borrow because, and also the cash flow was good enough, which was really surprising. I'm really surprised because initially he mentioned around 400 450 I can get, and I he was still mentioning man you can still get around $400,000, which
Again.
was again yeah
What?
after
But
making this purchase.
but why was that? Like because wouldn't he just have said you could take 800 at the time? Like why did he break it up like that?
Nah, it wasn't 800, right? Again, I don't know how this mortgage broking works, but what I learned as a
Yeah.
gist is this property bought at $310,000 had a rental of 380 per week. Right. And
Okay.
also, I think during this time, there might be interest rate cuts. I don't remember on top of my head. But NAB itself, again, he wasn't changing any lender. This mortgage, the first property was where I signed the contract in July was with NAB. And then in August, I remember signing up another contract in Perth at $400,000 with this. As soon as I got that confirmation, I started looking. I signed another one. And after that, he mentioned again, you can get around 350, 380, which made me finalize another property in September. So in July, August, September, I ended up buying three properties in Perth.
Wow. And because
And then,
they were all income produced, like all of them had cash flow.
yeah, I'll let you know the numbers now. So the first property was bought $310,000. It was in
Okay.
Huntingdale, 19-20 kilometers from the CBD on a 665-meter corner lot, which has got the subdivision potential. The property I bought at 310, and at the time, immediately after settlement, it got rented at 380.
Okay, so
So
380. Yeah.
380, now it was sitting at 460. It was under rented. The rental has increased to 580 now.
Whoa, okay.
Yes. So okay. So again, it may or may not be cash flow positive. I have not done the numbers, but yeah, based on the purchase price, the yields are pretty strong.
Yeah.
The second property I bought at $400,000. It immediately got rented at 450. It is
Hmm.
sitting at 650 now in terms of
Okay.
rental. The third one was at 412 500, and again 450 at the time, and then 480, and then now it is again sitting at 650 per week.
So
And then again,
so just
go
like
on.
you bought three properties within 3 months
Yeah,
and none of them had, because what I've heard is that you need to have like a year showing how much, you're actually getting back from the rental. You need
nah,
to, so no, you don't need to prove. Oh, so they sign the contract. The contract's enough to show the banks I'm getting this
yeah,
much for the next 12 months or whatever it is. And then they use
yeah.
that.
Again, see, I'll. This is what I was telling to everyone in the expo, right? While doing my journey, what I've learned is if a mortgage broker says that you cannot get a loan, it means he cannot get you a loan. Always
Mm,
understand that.
it doesn't mean you
During,
can't.
yes, during my journey, I might have changed five or six, and I'm really surprised, really blown away every time I change a broker and see what seems impossible, they make it possible. So every broker, like in our industry, right? Each buyer's agent have got their own niche that they are specializing in. So yeah, I think if someone says no, move on, find
I have
someone else
heard
who
that.
can do it.
Yeah, we did. We've had a couple of people on the podcast that similar things happened to them. It's like they were stuck after one property and then all of a sudden they changed mortgage brokers and they bought three. And I was just like,
Yeah.
again, in a short, and it always happens within 18 months. I don't know what's up with that 1.5
Oh, is that okay?
years.
Probably a lucky number for many
Maybe,
investors. Yeah.
yeah. But how did
Yeah.
you go about the deposit for each of those properties?
See, deposit, I never think I had a problem because my first property itself has grown significantly. And
Okay,
the,
so use
the,
the
the biggest,
equity.
yeah, use the equity. Even the Brisbane property has risen by this time, like 7, 8 months. The I remember for second property of worth, I might have taken 30,000 out of Brisbane property. That is what I roughly remember now.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah, I've
yeah.
taken some equity out from my Brisbane property, but most of it was from my principal place of residence. And in my initial few properties, I always thought of saving LMIs. So I kept giving 20%, which was because I had enough, so it wasn't a problem. But then there was a time in my portfolio when I was going with my sixth, seventh, and eighth purchase in March, May, and June 2022. Even I had 400K equity sitting in my account. I always told my broker, just pay 12% plus LMI. I don't want
Mm,
to be paying 20%, though I have it. So that is what I've learned along the way. And that is, I think, what we, as an experienced buyer's agent who have done it for themselves, provide as a value to our clients, that we have made so many mistakes along the way. And now our clients who are now starting with us has got that opportunity that they are probably starting in the best possible shape,
yes.
right? Like they are not making any of those mistakes, which we have done. So if they think that we have done well and they want to replicate it, I personally feel in similar situation, they could even do it better.
Yeah, because well, they've got you to show them the way now. They don't need to make the
Yes.
mistakes. You've got
Yeah,
it.
that is
Yeah.
correct. And then in November, I remember I had a call again while sitting in my office in CBA. I had a call with another mortgage broker who taught me a way that they're using trust structures, you can actually borrow more. He basically
Hmm.
educated me that you can buy under a trust structure with a corporate trustee, and then when you go for subsequent lending, you can hide the asset and liabilities in the previous trust. So, and as a result of knowing that, I ended up securing three properties in March 2022. I ended up buying a property in Mackay at 292 in one of the
Wow.
best pockets of Mackay at 292. It is currently under rented at 500 per week. Its current rental should be around 600. So on lease renewal, we'll be moving it to 600.
Yeah, right.
It's on a, yeah, these are not inferior assets. These are typical Queenslander home, 311 in best pockets of Mackay, and it is on a lot of 871, which has got the subdivision potential if you want to do that.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, yeah, you've done incredible. And that's so good that I mean, obviously you love property and the fact that you can give back to other people. I think that's incredible. Yeah, that's really
Yeah,
good. Because
learning has taught us a lot.
yeah. Yeah, and one of the things that I guess you sort of mentioned it now, but one of the things you did say at the expo was savings is the slowest way to build your portfolio. And
That
is
is
that
correct.
where the LMI comes in as well? Like where save for 10% rather than 20%? Or like what would you?
Yeah. See, if saving is the only way for you to be buying property, definitely do it by all means. Yeah.
Yeah, like
And
your
you
first
don't, you won't,
property, you have to. There's no
100%.
other choice. Yeah.
Yes. So, and for your subsequent properties as well, if you are able to save faster, then your property is able to build equity, then that is your only choice, right? But I personally feel even if you are making really good money, the biggest problem with savings is first thing, you really can't save more than 100% of your income, right?
Yeah.
The second problem with savings is that from your active income, right? There's a lot of, again, I'm assuming it to be PYG. People working as self-employed have got some flexibilities there, but PYG employees specifically, even if their wages rises, they get to 47, 48% tax bracket, right?
Yeah.
So it is very difficult making 200K, 70K just goes in taxes, right? So there is a huge tax implication with these active earnings. Equity is a tax-free money,
Hmm.
right? So
Exactly.
there's no capital gains, there's nothing, right? So you can take that money out, use that as a deposit for your subsequent purchase. So if, say, for example, a couple really having good incomes, it will typically take them 1 to 1.5 years at least, like again, on very high incomes, to save for a deposit for a 500K purchase, right? Like
Yeah.
at least 1 to 2 years, I would say,
Hmm.
roughly. But if you are buying the right property, like for a client who's settling on my board, who's settling next week, right? His first property settled on 15th of February. His second property through us settled on in April. Third
Oh,
property is settling next week. A
wow.
client for VA whom we have done the testimonial yesterday, he was buying his fifth property through us, and he has bought four already in the last 10, 11 months. And the only reason why they're able to do that is because they are buying in the right markets. They in a very short time they're able to get the equity, and they are coming with the deposit ready. And if the mortgage broker is really good, they should be able to arrange borrowing capacity as well, right?
Yeah.
So you really can't buy 3 4 properties in 1 year, regardless of how much your PYG is giving you. Yeah,
It
unless you
has to
are
be,
earning $1 million. Yeah, that's a different story. But there are
yeah.
huge tax complications, implications. Sorry.
Yeah. So one of the main things then, like you said, you have to find it in the right place, which is when you rely more on capital growth than looking just at cash flow. Because obviously we want cash flow because, we want that passive income. We want something to give us to get to that next lifestyle
Yeah,
bracket. But obviously, yeah, without the capital growth, the cash flow won't actually help you get that next property.
100%. Cash flow is just for sustainability, right? You don't want to be having burden on your shoulders to be like, because you have already got probably in some cases your principal place of residence where you have to pay the mortgage, or even if you're renting, you have got rental expenses, right? So you don't want to be adding an extra burden onto you with each purchase, or even if you have to add, like you want to minimize it so that you can buy more, right? Because in the expo itself, I've given an example of a typical purchase in Sydney, right? Where even if you are paying 20% and getting going for 80% LVR, you could be looking at 40, 50, 60 grand negative, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which means before tax income, you need 100K of salary just to sustain that property, right? So can you have 2 or 3 or 4 of them? Probably no, right? So for that reason, uh, properties with better cash flow makes it easy and sustainable for you. Yeah, but
Yeah. So
always understand cash flow. Oh, sorry,
no,
sorry,
you
I,
go on.
I didn't mean to cut you there.
No, you
But
go on.
yeah, so but the cash flow, the thing is like when you are starting to build your portfolio, you're not relying on cash flow to be acting as a passive income, right? At that stage, you are just looking for sustainability, and your real money, real wealth is going to be coming from capital growth. For that reason, my main topic in the expo was how to be building a sustainable and sizable portfolio.
Yes.
But in order for it to be sizable, it has to be sustainable. Because, say, for example, if a property is committing you, you're so convinced that this property is going to give you $5 million of capital growth in next 10 years, you should have the financial ability to be able to hold it for next 5 or 10 years,
Mm-hmm.
whatever the time frame may look like, right? So if you can't hold it enough, like long enough, then yeah, you would miss out even on the capital growth.
Yeah. So the sustainable part of it is making the repayments, is that
Yeah,
being able to make the repayments. Yeah.
yeah,
And that should be your strategy rather than looking at, oh, I want a positively geared property. I want to, because that changes. I mean, you just mentioned that with your properties. Yeah. One time they were positively geared. Now, who knows? They're neutral. It just
yeah.
shouldn't be looking
See,
just
but
at
the
that.
sole intention was capital growth always, right?
Yeah.
I always say, like in front foot, you should always be looking for capital growth assets, but always be mindful of your cash flow.
Yeah.
But capital growth is what you are chasing. So I like we keep on getting a lot of clients these days, and sometimes the client says, "Man, I want positive gear property." I tell them, if you are going for 80% or higher LVR, a right asset which will make you money won't be positively geared. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not saying we will be buying you a negatively geared asset, but if we start chasing those kind, because the interest rate is itself sitting at 6.5%, right?
Yeah. How are you
Your
supposed to
gross
get
yields,
positively geared?
exactly. Your gross yields have to be over 10%. And if we start chasing those kind of yields in a residential freestanding home, then it ends up taking you to very wrong markets, which are very with very high volatility. This is not what we advise to go on, right? So I always tell them, even if it is positive, it might be $100 a week. That is, you can't rely or retire on that, right?
No.
You can retire on the capital growth that you would be getting from these assets.
Yes. Yes, definitely. And
Yeah,
that's another message that just the more people I have on the podcast, that's just one of the things that keeps coming out. It's, guys, capital growth. Don't use negatively positive gearing as a strategy. It's not a strategy, it's the outcome.
yeah,
So yeah, so you mentioned, yeah, capital growth makes you wealthy, but cash flow
that is
allows
correct.
you to borrow more.
Yeah, so I said that capital growth makes you wealthy, but cash flow makes sure that you can sustain to the path of wealth.
Okay, so that's the connection to the sustainability. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, connecting to the sustainability.
And then one of the other points that I did that you did bring up at the Property Expo was about rental yield typically can reduce with increasing house prices. Could you dive into
Yes.
that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. See, it is very common for people to understand now, right? So wherever they see the higher prices, the rentals are not that high, right? So there is an inversely proportional relationship with them, right? So this
Okay.
concept is called yield compression. It has happened a lot during COVID, even for industrial assets, right? Like commercial properties, warehouses. So when the prices starts rising due to demand and supply, rents don't rise as much, at least in these fast-moving markets, right?
Mm.
Rents are catching up, but rents don't rise as fast as these markets.
Wait, so
Rents don't double.
is this in an area that isn't a blue chip suburb? Like it's a growing suburb? Is that what you're saying?
No, I think in growing suburb, you would still see rents rising. In these blue chip best suburbs, it is the rental yields are terrible because in when we say blue
Okay.
chip, it's the demand side which is keeping the prices high, right? Like
Mhm.
I'm living in Sydney, you're living in Gold Coast, so these are one of the expensive cities, right? So if you start going to blue chip suburbs, which are really expensive, the rentals are really not that high in comparison to. I'm talking about yield percentage here, right?
Yes.
So rental would definitely be high. But so say, for example, just for easy calculation, right? $1 million asset, if you can get that for $600 per week in rental, a $2 million asset wouldn't be 1,200,
Hmm.
right? Which means your yield is going to be reducing. Yield
Right.
is just a mathematical formula, right? So what you do is for gross yields, you multiply the weekly rent into 12 and then divide by, just give me a second. Oh, I just got some message. Okay, so yeah, yield is just a mathematical formula, right? So you just divide by the purchase price and multiply by 100, and then that is how it is calculated. So yields are like for, and that is the reason. That is another reason why people are now focusing on smaller price points because sustainability is better there. So that rather than investing in $1 million or $2 million asset, you want to be investing in multiple assets with smaller ticket prices in right markets, not just because it has got better capital growth potential, it does have that, but the cash flow is also better.
Okay.
And that basically helps you in the sustainability aspect.
Yeah. And then it makes you sizable because you have more properties.
Yeah,
And I guess that's the whole, like, that's also about diversity, right? Because you're going to
100%.
have different, yeah, because you're looking at different markets. You're just looking at, okay, for instance, Rockhampton, we're going to buy all the properties in Rockhampton for one
Yeah,
person. You will spread their portfolio out.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
We always believe in diversification, and then investing in smaller assets give you that liberty to diversify across multiple markets, right? So, in to make money in real estate, right? It's not complex. It's simple. Like it may not be easy because you may not have the skills, you may not have the relationships, but it's not complex. See, you need to be buying the right asset type. Nothing better a freestanding home in the right location at the right market cycle timing, and right market cycle timing is super crucial. As long as you know the market cycle timing, you are not getting the best asset in that particular market, you will still make probably 80% of capital growth in comparison to the best asset in the region, right? So the heavy lifting is done by the market cycle timing. So as long as you can get to the right markets, you would make money regardless. You might make
So,
mistake in selecting the assets. Yep, sorry, go on.
yeah, no, 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 that's okay. I know. I was just going to say, what would you consider is at the moment a good market, like a state with a good market cycle?
Yeah, see, market cycle timing is dependent. I personally feel on a lot of factors, right? Even the external factors. Like interest rate is one of the external factor, right? People
Yeah,
now
we can't help
nowadays,
that.
yeah, but people nowadays are becoming more familiar with, or probably more adaptable or like more educated towards why they should be focusing on the cash flow aspect, right? So
Hmm.
as a result, every location which is providing you better yields, people are just wanting to buy there so that they have got less negative gearing, they have got lesser impact on their financials to sustain that asset. So there are multiple markets in Queensland at the moment which are so hot, right? So I always tell my clients, right? So I tell them, I we can help you with the strategy, right? Come with a strategy in mind, or if you don't have one, we'll help you prepare one. But or come with a location preference in mind. But we really can't work with both, right?
Yeah.
Because I cannot make a strategy work in the location of your choice work, right? I really can't do that. So if you're wanting to build capital growth, you have to be investing in fast moving markets.
Yeah.
There is no rocket science. That's very easily everyone understands that, right? The downside is that you won't be able to pick bargains there. People want to pay less sometimes than the asking price. That usually doesn't work in the fast moving market,
Yeah.
right? Because there are other people who understand that paying 10,000 more today would make you another 50 to 100 grand in next 1 year, and that is what they are looking in terms of the outcome. So, and if you're looking for bargain, then you would be sacrificing on that short to mid-term capital growth sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you really have to, I think, and that's another thing, you have to look like make the client understand that you may need it because the buyer's agent role isn't to bring the price down. It's to get you the best deal for that property, right? Like you're not
Yeah.
going to, you can't actually negotiate a price that's too far below market that the seller's not going to buy, like, let you get.
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah.
a challenge
100%.
for you sometimes with your
Yeah.
clients?
Yeah, it is. It is always a challenge, right? But I think by being in the business, serving so many clients now, you learn how to tackle them, right? So it's more about education, right? So someone who has done 100 transactions in last 1.5 years versus someone who's just buying their first investment property ever in Australia, their level of understanding would definitely be different, right? And that
Yes.
is the reason why they are coming out to you as an expert. If they would know all this by themselves, they may not needed me, right? So
Yeah.
I think it's just a matter of educating them, and in most cases, people do understand that.
Yeah.
People do like when you're going to a doctor, right? Most people understand or basically take their advice and then act accordingly. Yeah. So yeah,
Why not do
uh,
that? Exactly right. With a buyer, an expert in the field, like,
yeah,
and again, going back to the best part with you is that you've gone through it, you've done
yeah,
it, you know the ins and outs from your own experience. I think,
yeah,
and I think with anyone in property and even like your accountant, you need to sort of understand that they have worked with either clients or themselves in what you want to become, where you want to go.
yeah,
Um, and asking those questions like how many properties have you invested in, like I think that's
yeah.
a very smart question to
Yeah,
ask and put
I
it to
made two more
people.
investments now. So my portfolio with my most recent settlement next month is going to be 10 properties.
Wow. Okay. And
Two
that's
more,
it.
yeah.
In how many years? 4 years? Three?
5 years. So five
5
years, my
years.
yeah, my portfolio whole value is now touching probably 9.8 mil. And I think the debt
Wow.
is going to be between, I need to do the numbers again, but I think
Yeah.
6.1 to 6.2. So I think I'm pretty much sitting at around low 60s in LVR.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not too
Incredible.
bad.
And are you now educating like your family, like your children about property? Like, do they
Yeah.
like to hear about it, or are they like, oh, Dad, you're talking about property again?
Yeah. See, I think regard like they are getting educated like silently, right? They
That's
keep
true.
hearing us. They are hearing the terms. They know what a strategy call means. They know what a discovery call. They know what like they know a lot of terms now. They are quite young, yeah. So I think I'm expecting them to be taking a few years, but I'm wanting to get my daughter, like she's 12 now. So as soon as she turns the legal age of working, which is I think 14 and a half to 15, so I want her to be getting into my buyer's agency. And even my son is 9. I told him that as soon as you turn 14, you are helping me in the business. You'll be
Amazing.
yeah, at this stage, getting a laptop excites them.
Yeah.
They have no other motivation, but yeah, they'll learn over time that there are much more expectations in the business.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's incredible because you're giving them work ethic, but you're also giving them life skills that they don't learn at school. Like at
Yeah,
school, they're never taught about property or investments or money in general. I mean, I don't know what schooling's like these days, but we weren't taught that.
yeah, true. Same here. Yeah,
It's the
never been
same.
taught that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, this has been awesome, Rohit. Thank you so much. I
thank
feel
you
like we've covered a lot of ground. I do have one question for you before you go.
for
I
sure.
like to ask my guests how do you invest in yourself daily? So I'm not talking about the business, I'm talking about your family. Like what do you do for you on the daily that helps you personally?
Now, okay, so I think the business is a true reflection of how you are, right? So if you want your business to grow, you have to grow along with it. So in order for me to do that, I have to wake up early in the morning, develop a habit of going to the gym, start listening to some like non-business stuff in the morning so that I can have a better start of the day. So sometimes, but it gets tricky because when you're traveling, like say for example, in the last 8 9 days itself, I have driven probably 5,000 kilometers now.
Oh,
So
wow.
last weekend when we met in Brisbane, I came driving from Sydney to Brisbane on Friday. Saturday, Sunday we did an expo. On Monday I came back, and then on last Friday I went to Melbourne by car. On Saturday, Sunday I was driving there like crazy. On Monday I drove back. So and
Wow.
while doing this, the business was still on. Like we were signing up deals, we were interacting with agents, so everything was still progressing. So but I think sometimes it gets too busy and I couldn't just focus on my morning routines. But usually, see again, this morning again, I woke up at 5, did my own thing before I can take the day on.
Yeah, and I think that's very important. And
100%.
especially, I mean, it's all about, without sounding corny, it's your mind, body, and soul. You know, if you feed those
100%.
three, like, and I like that you also do like listen to podcasts or whatever you listen to outside of business, because it's
100%.
also good to get that worldly, perspective. It's not all about business, business, business. Like, there's a
Yeah.
lot more out there than just real estate.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Awesome. So, Rohit, how do our listeners find you?
Okay, so they can actually find us online. This is our brand InvestTrade. So they can go on our website, investtrade.com.au. They can always book a free consultation if they're keen in understanding how we can help them. Even if I can't help them, we'll provide them right directions how they should be progressing. Because I think our business has not just started because of the revenue aspect. It all started with passion, and that is what we are wanting to build. So even if we can help people down the track, I might want to do podcasts like yourself where I want to educate people on how they should be doing it, right? So, like, I want to be sharing in our strategy call itself with any potential client. We share the end-to-end process, even all internals of the business, right? So that if they think this is what they're after, they can always sign up. If they think this is not their after, or they now think they can do it themselves, I'm more than happy for them to try it on their own. So yeah, if they need any help, they can always reach out through our website, book a consultation. We can always take it from there.
Perfect. And Rohit's a beautiful person, so he will
Oh,
definitely, yeah,
thanks.
greet
Thanks,
you with
Vanessa. And
friendliness. No, it's been
thank you.
so awesome to have you on the podcast. Thank you so much, Rohit.
Thanks a lot, Vanessa, for
We'll
having
talk
me. It
soon.
was a pleasure
You're
being here.
welcome. Anytime. Thank you.
Take
Bye.
care. Cheers. Bye.